Mhm. And we're live.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Truth Talks Live, a production of the Truth Movement New Brunswick. I'm Jen Smith, and I'm your host. I'd like to welcome our regular panelists, Sally and Natasha. Courtney was not able to be with us this evening. She's super busy there with her research. And I would like to also introduce our guest this evening, Larisa Tamjidi. Um, hi, Larissa. Larissa is a master's student at UNB. And, we brought her in because we were talking about the same thing we were talking about last week, racism and, white supremacy and how it's affecting people of color here in New Brunswick. And, as I, mentioned last week, we need to, we as white people need to take a stand and stand with our friends and with this community of people that need their help. They need our help because we are the majority, and it's important to honor and respect, and just listen to things that may be uncomfortable to hear sometimes, but it's important that we do listen and give this floor space to those who actually have the experiences and can teach us, you know, ways that we can help make life better. So, welcome to the show, Laura and Laura, and I'm used to calling you Laura. So you'll have to unmute yourself, Larissa. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what you brought you here this evening? And welcome to the show.
First, I want to thank you, Natasha, Sally, for inviting me to your show. It's a beautiful show. Each Sunday I'm watching it. Well, I like your show for many things, but the racism, I guess, is affect all of us, and is not just for one person or another one. And I want to bring a little experience happens in 1974. Maria Abrovich, she wrote on a little paper, and she said, you can do whatever in 6 hours to me. And at the beginning, people, they were so nice to her, but then they start to beat her, split on her, they touch her. And after 6 hours, she was having so much bruises and she was so broken. There was two problems here. One of the things, the people who has courage to beat her and put her down, and another things, people who silence and didn't say anything. And we are facing both of them, and I don't know which one is worse. When I came to Canada in 2006, I was so happy. I loved Canada. I still love Canada. That's why I want to make it a better place. And I started go to multicultural to learn better culture, better English, better everything. And I remember one day they told us Michelle Jean, she's coming to Fredericton. And I was so excited. They told us they are gonna take us to downtown. We're gonna see her. I saw Sean Graham, he came. I saw Michelle Jean, she came with her husband. And it was a very nice moment because we were close and we were could, shook hands with them and talk to them. Then Michelle Jean's husband, he asked me a question. He said, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Iran. And he said, but we don't like Iranian. We don't have a good relationship with Iran. Why they let you to come into Canada? And I did everything legally, and I came to Canada, and I love that country. And it was a shock moment for me. Then I went back to multicultural, and I told my teacher, I said, Sheila, why he said such a thing? I was so happy to see them, but they weren't really happy to see me. And Sheila, she tried to say it, oh, he's French, his English is not good, and you're broken English, you're at the ESL person, maybe you couldn't communicate. But he was very clear about what he said, and I understood it. It was a very hard English for me to not understand it. Then later, I start to see the same things in a society. I start to go to the work. And one time I had a disagreement with one of my coworker, and she said it, she said, okay, let's, put everything down and, solve the problem. Instead of she said, let's have a conversation. She told me, if you ask me to solve the problem, you should accept it, or I'm gonna ship you back to your fucking country, or and you can also lose your job and everything. I mean, she was kind of treating me. And then I see, okay, this is also happening in society. Then another time, I mean, I become a citizen of Canada in 2010. I was so happy. I got my passport. I actually went to Rome with my passport, and I get, a random check. That's another story, but I was so proud Canadian. Then we were close to the election for the provincial. And I was so happy. I did few research, which party I want to vote. And I actually like NDP. I said I'm gonna vote for NDP. Then I was polishing my nails orange. I was putting the crush orange here. I was wearing orange. And I know I was too crazy. I went, 100% NDP. And there was a guy, he saw me at coffee shop and he said, "You're voting for NDP?" I said, "Yes." I was so happy. I find that they are closer to me. That doesn't mean I don't like the other people from other party, but NDP was much closer to my heart. And he said, "Oh, these are the people, they want the pedophilia and terrorists, they come to the country." And I was like, "What?" I mean, it's like, they said, "Oh, you're terrorist, welcome to Canada. And you're a doctor. I'm sorry, I'm not going to accept you to come to Canada." Then I tried to ask him why you are saying that to me. And he was trying to tell me there is a website, is saying, the African people, they are all rapists. And I understand maybe you can find one person who's guilty, but you cannot say the entire nation, they are doing something so bad. And I was trying to teach him, and you know me, I have a big mouth, I am Persian, I like to talk. Then I was, trying to talk to him. And at some point he got so mad. And he said, "You know what? I can kill you and put your dead body at St. John River. No one can say anything." Probably he was treating me, but it's kind of put me back. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't talk about politics. It put me in dangerous. And when the accident happened with my coworker, when she said, "I will ship you back to your fucking country," the next day, I had a meeting with James Watmore. Dr. James Watmore, he accepted me just recently, that time in master program. And I really like him. He's a very bright person. He's very intelligent and he's very smart and wise. I went to his office, and because my supervisor and somebody else told me, "I will ship you back to your fucking country," I was so upset. I went to James' office and I said, "You all people are racist." It was bad from me, but you should understand, I was hurt. I was so much put down during all these years, and I was feeling all white people, they hate me. And James, he was like, "What I done to you?" He even shared his coffee. He has a very natural coffee. He said, "Do you want to make you a coffee?" He made me a coffee. We chat. He told me, "You should leave your work." I didn't left my work because I need money. I was looking for a job, but it's very hard to find a job for white person in, Ferrito. And just imagine for someone like me with a very different Tamjidi, with a very, weird name, is much make it much harder for me to find a job. Eventually I left my job. But to be honest, when you see so much bad things from people, you start to reserve yourself and you start to be afraid of people. There was a time, if I was at a street and I wanted to ask a question, and there was an African lady and there was a white lady, I was going to ask it from African lady. Then during years I had to educate myself. Not all white people are bad. I saw James is good, you are good, Jen. And for example, my friend Alicia, she always stood up for me. She's another nice, good person. Then there are good people. But one bad person can make you to be so much reserved. Few days ago, I was talking to my friends, Iranian friends in British Columbia, and they also face the racism, but the racism is like a shed under the carpet. For us, the shed is on the carpet. Everybody, they see it, but they say, "No, there is no shed." I'm not telling you which one is worse, you know. The both situations are bad. But for us, I mean, I see someone comes to my face and telling me, I will ship you back to your fucking country or I kill you. For them, they said, they were the guy, he said, I was at a store and there was an old white lady. She came to me and she told me, oh, you should move. And it was a big aisle and she just could go around me and, you know, carry on, but she didn't want to do it. And then he said, I just saw a few times happen to me, but she wasn't doing it to another white person. And he said, I was thinking, okay, you know, she's just doing it to me. I'm the only not white person in the store. And then the last time he didn't move and he was like, oh no, you know, lady, you're kind of, you know, not nice to me. You know, for me, if I see the old lady, she comes, I'm gonna move out, you know, and that's not even my problem. My problem in Fredericton is much bigger. You know, my problem is it's very hard for me to find a job. When I say there is a bad experience happens to me, people are like, oh, it's just happened to you, you're the problem. Or they try like to, like my teacher, I mean, I love my teacher, but they try to push it under carpet. They said, oh, maybe your English wasn't good or his English wasn't good. And they try to, you know, bring it down and say, oh, it wasn't the bad things, you know. I saw actually today, I saw a conversation between two of my friends about racism under one of my posts. One of them, she said racism happens because people are poor and then government is gonna, you know, blame it on cities, on immigrants. And that's true. Many times they say immigrants, they come to steal your job. However, many immigrants, they come to Canada because Canada doesn't have that, you know, amount of people to do that job, or we bring money and make businesses, you know. And another, but my other friend, she said you cannot say poor people, they are the only races. And I was also agree with her, because I saw a few years ago, there was a conversation between me and Michelle Jean's husband, and he was directly to my face, he said, oh, I don't like Iranian. If I was telling him I am a Turkish person, maybe he was like, welcome to Canada. But because I told him I am from Iran, he was kind of shocked how I even allowed to enter to Canada. And these are the problems we are facing, or I face, at least as an immigrant, and continue, you know, as a citizen sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I was torn between like heartfelt, like, you know, but you made me really laugh too in your
Yeah.
delivery. You kind of shocked me a little bit. Funny too in ways. People won't forget watching it, that's for sure. And you know, I have the utmost respect for you. I think you're wonderful, and I'm so glad that you decided to join us tonight to share your story and your experiences. And
Thank you for having me.
you know, there's oh, of course. There's an expression which you guys just kind of put me not anyways. There's an expression: if one person calls you an a-hole, you're probably not an a-hole. If two people call you an a-hole, you may or may not be. If three people call you asshole, you're an asshole. Right? So like, just, you know, to my mind here, we have three women of color, you know, two immigrant women, like Canadian citizens now. But anyway, it doesn't even matter that, and you guys aren't the only ones that are talking about and crazy, or that what you're feeling isn't legitimate, or that what your experience is, you know, just whitewashed basically. And anyway, so I'm just happy that I, you know, I had the opportunity to learn from you guys and I hear you all. So Sally, did you want to dive in here?
First off, Larisa, thank you so much for sharing that story. The bigger thing that I want to recognize and thank you for is your courage to share that story. It's not easy to share a story of racial discrimination. It's even less easy to share it by name and by location. And personally, I'm very proud of you and would like to see more immigrants, POC, speak out and identify and oppressor shame people who are oppressing people, because it's exactly like Larisa was saying. The problem isn't the people who actually do the assault and the oppression. The problem is the majority that does nothing. When I was so I would have been 11 years old. When I was 11 years old, I was violently assaulted in school in front of hundreds of individuals, teenagers, adults, medical people, employees in the office that shared with our yard, the school staff. 100% witnessed the children come around me, circle me, while I was playing a game with other people, playing tetherball on a pole. Okay, so like it's clear that if I'm playing tetherball with a person and there's a pole with a ball in the middle, I'm probably playing with that person. But, and this is an important point to keep to my story, I was surrounded by a group of teenagers, surrounded in a large circle and beaten. First shoved, then beaten in front of hundreds of individuals. No one intervened until quite late in the game when I was on the ground, already with a spinal injury that altered a lot of my back's history and a head injury at the time. And I was taken by ambulance. And not one person stopped it until a teacher, I think, finally came outside and said, enough is enough. And then afterwards, my parents, who got a phone call saying, oh, don't panic, your child is in the, we had to call 911 on your child, she's in the hospital. What happened to my child? Oh, well, she was playing with other kids and got hurt. I was playing. I'm not sure what part of it was playing. I'm not sure whether it was while I was actually playing with individuals. Was it the part where they surrounded me in a human wall and I started to have a look of terror on my face that it looked like I was playing with them? Was it when they started to shove me aggressively like a hot potato that my legs barely even made it to the ground that it looked like they were playing? Or was it when their steel toe boots made impact with my rectum, deforming it, and my lower back deforming it, that made it look like a game? The responsibility was then put on my parents to move me from school to school my entire childhood to keep me alive.
That should
The
have been
aggressor
charged criminal.
may have been, what, say at most 10 people, but hundreds of people witnessed it.
What?
Which was why when I spoke about it with our episode with Minister Carty, I was passionate in saying, what are we going to do different to protect my children so that I know that there isn't going to be an ugly, nasty cover-up on something that happens to a child? Lara and I were having a conversation earlier where we were speaking about Germany and how Angela Merkel didn't want any of the Syrian refugees until that poor 4-year-old boy was dead, floating in the water face down. Well, here you have a situation where hundreds of individuals saw the crap getting beat out of an 11-year-old child. And it's not that I'm the child, it's that it's the possibility that it could be my children that really makes that shake in my voice. And that is where I have a problem with the hundreds of individuals that witnessed a crime, that witnessed the physical assault and deformation of a child, and are willing to sit idle, and our education system continuing to spread the same rhetoric, the same lack of education. And we keep bringing in more immigrants. We're just human trafficking into our province to fill the void and the need of the province, just human trafficking in with no concerns for these individuals and their children. And that is just as much of a crime as kidnapping a child off the street and human trafficking them, in my book. Because we have an entire generation of children who are afraid, who should be afraid, and whose parents, when speaking up, my father's position in his job was threatened. And it was my parents' responsibility to worry on how to keep me alive when they send me to school. I'd like to know how many of my white friends worry about their children not getting killed by their peers in school. And now, as a 36-year-old mother of 2, you can bet your bottom dollar I fled the hell away from District 1 or any school district that I already know what to expect out of them, because we've done nothing to make it up to me or any other family that may have faced these circumstances. And denying it and lying about it is just as bad, because here is the thing: if we don't talk about history, it is bound to repeat itself. And here we
That's for
are,
sure.
covering
Yeah.
it up.
That's the long game of any government, it seems, anyway. But thank you for sharing your painful story. I have heard it before, but I think that it's important that other people hear it as well. Natasha,
Thank you.
you're up. Are you muted? You're up.
Okay, so thank you.
Did I shock you for a second there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can. Okay. So first of all, thank you, Lara, for sharing your story. It's really brave to say all that in, public forum. It's hard enough to get over the fear of saying it to people you know, and it's even harder to say it in public. When I first met Laura, and it was through the political party that we were both involved with, I knew she had been through some sort of racial trauma because she was apologizing to everybody constantly, every 2 minutes. It was, I'm sorry this, I'm sorry that. I'm thinking, you know what? I've seen this before because I used to do that. And I used to apologize to everybody around me constantly. And I didn't know I was doing it. This is not now, this is several years ago. But I didn't know I was doing it. And I didn't know why I was doing it. But it's out of fear. You're doing it out of fear. And I didn't see that I was doing it until I saw my daughter doing it to her peers in third grade. And I wouldn't have normally seen it because you don't normally see your kids interact with their peers, but this was like after school, and she was just, I think, saying sorry to a bunch of people. And I was like, what happened? Why are you saying sorry? She's like, well, if I don't say sorry, they don't speak to me. And I was like, are you kidding me? Are you serious? And she said, yeah. And I said, oh my God. And then I said, then I think you shouldn't speak to them. And she said, well, if I don't speak to them, then I won't speak to anyone. I was like, well, then you are better off. I said, speak to your teacher, speak to the assistant, speak to the interns. Don't speak to them. If they're making you apologize to have a conversation with them, I don't know what crap their parents are putting in their heads, but this is not a healthy relationship. So I think once she understood that and she stopped apologizing, then I think it's your own response that carries over. Because if you're apologizing to people all the time, they're thinking mentally, maybe they're doing you a favor by speaking to you, and that sort of carries over. So once I think she stopped doing that, then she could have a normal, relationship with people. But I recognized that in you when I saw that. And I was like, oh, she's definitely been through something. But so to I think you all have heard me speak many times, but I'll just, since we're talking specifically about racial trauma, when I moved to New Brunswick, like I had heard only good things from people back home who had moved to Canada. I'd only heard good things. And my previous experience was my parents doing their medical training in the US. Great experience. I had a wonderful time. I just have good memories from that. What I'd heard about people living in Canada was they said it was a great place to be, but, and I think here's the but, they were all living in Ontario. Universally, everybody was living in Mississauga or Brampton or the neighborhoods that you hear about, which are, predominantly South Asian, and their kids were extremely happy. So I think that that was the difference, but I didn't know that. So, I didn't really have much say in it. I was informed by my spouse's family, okay, he's got papers for New Brunswick and you're moving. So we moved. But I didn't know, that there was going to be a difference. And I didn't know the immigration history was different in New Brunswick. So when I moved here. Like, I was in a traditional married relationship. I was expected to stay home. I was expected to stay home, clean the house, take care of the kids. I had a medical degree, but they told me to shelve that for the time being. And just to keep the marriage intact, I went along with it. I regret that now, but I did. And it wasn't until several years that I sort of got out of the house when my daughter went to preschool. And there's a lot of resistance to that, but that's a whole other story. And for another day, another time. But when I got out of the house, and this was 7 years after I moved, it was the first time I had a conflict was when I made a complaint about a local person, that it suddenly, that's when things sort of became apparent to me that, wait a minute, this is not what I thought it was. We were all evil. I'm an evil person here. And that's when it became apparent to me that no, I wasn't. So it's sort of like your first experience. And I don't know if everyone's had similar experiences or not. I think some have and some haven't. I think you're lucky if you just haven't been had some sort of transgression and you had to complain. I would personally tell people, unless you're ready to take on a major long-term fight with a lot of local people, don't complain, because you have no idea what's going to happen to you. Because it's like the whole, you know how, Sally, you described all these kids circling you. Okay, that's a playground, right? And that's what happens there. But when you're an adult, okay, it's a whole other game. And it's like you are figuratively surrounded by this person you've complained about. Yeah, exactly. All their friends, their entire network, everybody that they know is now sort of figuring out, okay, how did this woman have the audacity to complain about a local person? And we're going to show her. It's really that mentality. And it's just, it didn't occur to me that adults who are educated could behave in this way. It just would not have occurred to me that this could happen in an adult setting with people who claim to be educated. But because there are so many I think we were discussing this earlier today on your post, but there's so many factors that predispose people in New Brunswick. I can't speak for all of New Brunswick until I heard stories from other people living in other cities, but in Fredericton, for behaving that way. There's just too many things that are sort of aligned that make that possible, because you have very small numbers of people who are racialized or cultural minorities until recently, very small numbers. You have almost 100% representation of Anglo or French people in government sector, almost 100%. Just think about that. It's mind-boggling. When I think about it, I think, wow, how is that possible? And it's just, and when you ask, how come you don't have diversity? Because I think we have asked that question. Well, they say, well, people just don't apply. We just don't have people who apply. And I'm thinking, well, maybe you should be thinking about what is wrong with your workplace atmosphere that nobody else is daring to apply. Because why aren't they applying? Why wouldn't I want a job that gives me an in essentially to the community and respectability and validity? Why wouldn't I want that sort of job? And the fact is, people are not applying because they know that this workplace is going to be hostile to them. So you have this 100% representation in the government sector. You have 55%, is it 55%, Jen, illiteracy? Functional illiteracy.
It's over 50% functionally illiterate. Illiteracy.
And then on top of that, you have like the education.
I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah, but you have the education system in which kids are not even taught about anything but Atlantic Canadian history. They don't even know about other cultures. They're not even taught about other systems and how they work in other places around the world, and why people immigrate in the first place. And all these things. They don't hear about these things. They have a multicultural day in all the schools in which they have these performances or food or things like that. The multicultural agencies call themselves
Entertainment.
multicultural agencies, and it's all
Mhm.
entertainment. It is fluff. It is food and dancing, and that is literally all you're allowed to show about what your values are, because I think nothing else matters or is considered important or is even allowed in a Canadian setting, because they're thinking, well, you moved here, we're doing you this tremendous favor of allowing you to live here because you don't have the same background as us, so it's a big favor, and we want you to just erase every part of you that is not what we are. And I don't think I didn't sign on to follow every single cultural tradition. I don't remember saying that I would put my kids in hockey or I would have to do every single popular thing. I agreed to respect the Constitution, the laws, and respect other people. And I believe that's what can make this country great, is that we respect each other. We see other things that other people do and we learn from them, because nobody's perfect. There is no culture that can say we're perfect. I like the system, and that's why I moved. I respected the system, but what I'm seeing is the system is not working for everyone the same way, because it works for the dominant community, but it doesn't work for anyone else. So how is that equality and how is that freedom?
And
And
oh,
sorry, go ahead.
no, if I may interject a moment too, I'd like to make something very, very clear. Because I've often heard that immigrants should be very grateful that they are in New Brunswick.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If you go to McDonald's and you buy a Big Mac and you don't get your Big Mac, you're going to complain. Well, guess what, New Brunswickers? Immigrants pay a lot of money to our system to come and work here and contribute more money into the system.
Yeah.
So guess what, New Brunswickers? We have not served them their Big Mac, and if we did, it's either over or undercooked or flat out stale and garbage.
No, it's just to finish up, and I think then I think we should let Larisa speak as well. But just the first time I had that experience of making a complaint about somebody who is, mandated to do their job and didn't do their job, and all the pushback that followed and this huge sort of retaliation that took place, I never expected that, because nobody gave me this memo that, wait a minute, you're not allowed to complain if people don't do their job. Your safety and your kids' safety does not matter to anybody here because you're not from the right community. I mean, I honestly think if you're going to do this, you need to put that out somewhere. It needs to be publicly said, we are not going to give you equal treatment. Then if they don't want people of color in New Brunswick, if they don't want ethnocultural minorities, if they don't want a specific minority, then they should put that out there in public so we can see it and we don't move here. Because the years and years of pain and it creates mental health issues where you didn't have them before. We did not move to Canada so we could get mental health issues and physical health issues that we did not have in our home countries. We didn't move for that. And, you're not doing anybody a favor when you do that. So it's like it's a betrayal. You feel like it's a betrayal because it's like this promise of, this wonderful sort of community and this wonderful system. And I still think the system, like the legislation, the laws, the Constitution, I think that's amazing, but it doesn't work for us because it's not applied to us and we don't benefit from it. So it's just, this is something that needs to be said. It needs to be said often. And, we're lucky that we have a space where we can say it, and we're not being told to shut up and stop speaking. So yeah, and I'm going to stop speaking now.
No, you're being given the floor. Literally. Larisa, Would you like to add something else into the conversation?
Well, I want to give a few sentences before we say goodbye.
I'm having a hard time hearing you,
Oh,
Larissa.
I'm sorry. I want to say few sentences before we say goodbye.
Yes, please.
During my undergrad at UNB, one of the prof, he came and gave a speech. He said, I was so lucky because I was a young person during 1980s when the women's right happens,
Mhm.
when we fought against racism, when we tried to bring more social justice to the community. But he also added, he said, but we left it too early. And that's the thing. Racism is a ancient things. I mean, during the old Persia, Cyrus the Great, he saved the Jews and helped them to have a house and led them to have their religion. Then years later, the Hitler killed 6 million people. Last year, George Floyd happened, and we know Greg. Anytime when I talk to Greg, he's telling me we cannot go back to our normal. Everything after Corona should be changed. And it's 2021. We should really think about how we can fight racism. It affect all of us life. Takes energy from my life, takes energy from your life, Jen, as a white person. Take energy from Sally and Natasha, the energy we can put towards to make something better. I mean, instead of if I'm gonna be nervous about if I go out, the person is gonna judge me or is gonna be mad at me because I'm brown person, I can put that energy towards, writing my thesis and finish, things and do more research, but because Natasha, she's right. I born in Iran during war between Iran and Iraq. I born during the sanctions. I mean, I didn't have many privileges and many things, but I never be, depressed or stressed in my life. I mean, I was kind of stressed, but I never be depressed. But during when I came to Canada, the very first year when I was leaving, I was actually depressed. Then I had to deal, with the things was happening to me. And I mean, and that was another problem because I thought Canada is just a pink country, everything is great. You know what I mean? And then when I came and I see the shock culture, people they don't like me because I have accent, people they don't like me because I'm brown, people they don't like me because I have Muslim background. It was very shocking to me. I remember I told one of my coworker one time, I said, I don't like to eat pork. Then she make a food, she gave it to me. I ate it and she said it was pork and she laughed. I mean, if it was an accident, I didn't have any problem with it. But because she was purposely was doing something I didn't want, she's doing it to me, it makes me really upset. And that's the thing. I mean, mm, I mean, that happens to me. Someone give me food and I understood it was a pork, but it was, just that, it was okay to me. It didn't makes me sad. But when people they try by purpose, they do something to you, it makes you sad. Or I remember one time I posted Persian music, no Bahar. It is about the Nowruz. Nowruz is my new year, and I really like it. It's the first day of a spring and I post that music at my Facebook. One of my coworkers, she messaged me that time and she said, you are in Canada, you shouldn't listen to Persian music anymore. And back in Iran, I was listening to English music, French music, German music, Arabic music, all different music. And I thought if I go to Canada, I have more access to different music. And when she said it, it was a shock to me because I was like, music has no languages, all music are beautiful. I listen to even Japanese and Korean music. And these things, they say this is the only way you should fit in is bothers me, because in our life we need all different people. You guys need a crazy people like me, you guys need a normal people like you, you know, we all need to be together, make this world is gonna work and it's gonna be beautiful. I like math, but just imagine if everybody love math, it's gonna be so boring. We need all different people, we unite together and bring this country up. I love this country. I know we can have a good future, but we need everybody's help. We need all white people or not white people. And one day, I want we look at each other as a human. I don't want we look at each other as, oh, she's white, she's brown, she's, you know, purple. You know, I want we just look at it as humanity. And like James, you know, he doesn't care, you know, what color you are. You can be green, you can be, you know, orange. He loves everybody, you know, and he accepts everybody. In his group, you can see all different cultures and all different people. All he cares, if someone he like math and he wants to do research, and he gave opportunity equally to everybody. Unfortunately, when I apply for a job many times, I don't see it. And thank you. I hope I didn't talk too much. I told you, you should shock me if I talk too much.
No, no, no. You're very well, you're very articulate, but you're very entertaining, even though you
You.
might not be trying to be, but it's great. It's perfect. You know, when people are just speaking in one dull low voice or whatever, you know, monotone, it's, you know, hard to keep their attention, but you definitely keep people's attention. That's for sure. They're going to listen for sure.
Thank you.
Sally, did you want to throw in here? We got to keep our responses on this time a little shorter, just because I think we're starting to approach our time here.
I want people to really reconsider the grayscale. When it comes to racism, I don't believe that there's a grayscale. I believe it's either black or white.
No.
And the truth is, when it comes to racism, there's no gray. You're either supporting the cause by being silent, or you're vocally with it, or even better, you're vocally against it. If you are being silent, you are allowing harm. And personally, as a child, children want to love everybody all the time. They're curious, they're creative, they're brilliant. Well, the first thing I had to tell myself as a child is that there's no gray. And if I make the mistake that someone's silence is that they are agreeing with me, I could get killed. And I'm having conversations now with my 4-year-old about police cars. We're driving behind a police car. Oh, wow, mommy, a police car. Well, no, honey, not necessarily. Oh, wow. They are people, and they can be equally vicious and equally nice as anybody else. And you are a little black man. You need to be careful. You're not a white man, so you might get stopped. And something that someone else might get a warning, you will get a fine, or you will get arrested because of who you are, not because of what you did. And I've seen it. I've seen it happen to my family, to my friends. We see it now with the legal system, where there are criminals being held of possession of marijuana. Well, marijuana was illegal, and now it's legal. But we're now forcing these criminals to spend thousands of dollars into our system to further victimize them. And on the other end, homosexuality, which went from illegal to legal, that was pardoned automatically, but they were mostly white people who were criminal. Just long story short, silence is abuse, and you are re-victimizing the victim.
Silence is violence. Silence is violence. Natasha, did you have any final comments there briefly?
Well, I would just sort of echo what the other girls have been saying, and it's like an appeal. It's an appeal to the community, because you know, there's two kinds of racism. There's, you know, community-based racism, which we've talked about, and then there's systemic racism. And systemic racism is a whole other bitch. You know, sorry, it's just another. I'm grateful that they're finally acknowledging it, which is thanks to Black Lives Matter. But tackling it, breaking it down, that is going to take a whole other, movement. But so I don't even know if there's any point to appealing to systems to please stop being racist, to stop, selectively protecting one group of people, covering up for their crimes when they hurt us, because I don't know if they're listening or they care, but and appealing, it's a community appeal. There's some of you who are good people. We've met good people. And what I see is good people are afraid. And I see them equally afraid because they're seeing just how ruthless and how aggressive racist people can be. They don't exempt children. I've gone blue in the face trying to explain this to people when they would say, "Oh no, but they would never hurt your children." Excuse me, what? What have you forgotten about residential schools? Yes, racist people are bad people. Okay, they're not. I don't care if they're, bring flowers to their girlfriend. They're still bad people. And when you're hurting someone because of who they are rather than what they do, you're not a good person. So it's if you're seeing something and you are afraid to say anything because you're going to lose your friend group, or you won't get that promotion because your employer is like obviously blatantly racist, maybe think about forming another group. Maybe think about reaching out to other like-minded people who aren't like that, and making new groups, and making groups that are large enough to actually stand up to these groups. Because right now you may have less people in New Brunswick who are overt racists, but they are protected. They're protected by institutions. They have enough people everywhere who will cover their asses, and they have enough people who are going to stand by them. But we don't have that. We don't have that benefit. We don't have that luxury, and we're not protected. When it comes to us versus another a white person, we are not protected. Maybe if one of us had a go at each other, then maybe there would be some hope of equality. But if it's us versus a white person, we are not protected anywhere, anytime. And again, institutions are going to take forever to change their ways. I don't even know when that's going to happen. So it's an appeal to the community. Please, speak up, do something, make new friends. Okay, stop having racist friends and stop catering to your racist friends, and stop listening to them when they say, "Oh, well, that person deserved it." You know what? We're vulnerable people. We're not the dominant group here. And stop comparing us to people in the Middle East who have armies. I'm sorry, what does that have to do with us? We are, like alone here. I didn't even have any family members. I had no adult, who I could ask for help. I had no relatives, no friends, nothing. And how am I in any way any kind of person who can take on people like this by myself? None of, and Sally was a kid, and Larissa was a young immigrant. So please be realistic, and stop listening to rhetoric and try to get to know people, and stop listening to your friends who've never had a person who a friend who wasn't white. It's just be realistic, and take your head out of the sand and be a citizen. Let's be Canadian.
I'm glad you said sand, or not glad. I thought you were going to say something else, but
I'm trying not to. I was so
you
happy
guys are throwing me.
No, I was so happy when
I like atypical behavior of you. Sorry?
No, I said I was really happy when I read that research that swearing is actually good for you. So it's okay.
Oh, it must be good for me because I let her go a lot. But I mean, I'm pretty well known too, but you guys are definitely a little more reserved sometimes, the two of you, not so much Sally. But anyway, lovely to see. Just when I think I can't learn anything else or hear anything else or whatever, you guys throw more back into the fold. And I, as the host of the show and a friend to all these women, and having been in an experience with somebody who was from another country and is a person of color in the political arena. And, he was subsequently squashed. And it had a really horrible effect on me for a year. And the most disappointing thing about all that is that almost 30 of us stood up for this person of color. And this individual didn't, like, we all fell around him, and he did not do anything to help where he had such a big platform and whatnot. But I mean, in certain ways I get it, in certain ways I don't. But I'm just so glad that I had you guys all here. Larissa, that was just informative. And you're such a sweet person. I'm so glad I have had the opportunity to meet you. Hope you come back to the show again someday. So this wraps up our second part of the 2-part series that we were doing for racism and white supremacy here in New Brunswick in particular, and in Canada. So I would like to thank very much all of our regular panelists. Thank Larissa for joining us and providing her sweet knowledge, and to our viewers. And I'd also like to remind again my white Caucasian friends that, we cannot be the silent majority. We cannot be the silent majority. And there's been, plenty of experiments done that, prove the people that stand around and watch what's happening, or, you can be complicit in what's happening by your inaction. So, all it takes is a simple, sometimes speaking up, or, you could see somebody sitting alone or by themselves, go speak to them, be kind to them, maybe get to know them a little bit. And, it's just simple little actions sometimes that you can do if you're not even confronting a hostile situation, or, having to come to the defense of somebody that, you know, sometimes it's just enough to be there, have your presence there, and speak out as well when it's applicable. So thank you, ladies, so much. Love you all. We'll be back again. Hopefully, I think it'll be next Sunday night. Double check on that, but we always let you know ahead of time. And I hope everybody has a wonderful evening, and we'll see you guys all soon. Truth Talks out. Have a good night, everybody.
Good evening.
Bye.